one of the best safety records of aviation in the world. And if that is not an acclamation to the CAA, I don't know what it is. Yes, we have to work within the rules. And I think it was that one article that persuaded our whole legal team and everybody else. What do we want to do after all? Do we want to support or fight the people that keep our skies safe? And from ProWings, we want to support the CAA irrespective of what difficulties it is. We want to support the CAA because what they're doing must be right, because we wouldn't have a world reputation for safety like we have. One of the things was I discussed at that time, can somebody take this away because it's going to vibrate? Over there. We discussed at the time, when we first started this with the CAA, and that was that there are two different groups of people. And ProWings was going to concentrate on the people who made their living out of flying, and they needed to become legal as quickly as they possibly could. And we were going to create this fairly short training course that would meet the requirements according to the regulations. And then the people would be able to write the exams. And we understood there would be one instructor that would actually do the training, and the other instructor would then do the examining. Now, the timelines, and I got all the timelines here. Not long after that, the timelines changed, where it was decided that in line with the commercial license, totally in line with the commercial license, right? Totally in line with the commercial license, they were putting in a designated examiner. And I then stopped getting involved in any form of instruction and concentrated on doing the examining. The vast majority of the people who came to be checked out were highly experienced pilots. I know I'm going to pull somebody's leg, who could do things like loop-de-loops, who could cut the power and even land with power cut, but it was a highly skilled group of people. Right? And then, on the 13th of October, a form came out for flight instructors, but this referred to the actual full training of what they call ab initio students. These are people who have never flown in their lives before and know nothing about it. Clearly, it was not seen as being a requirement. When the inspectors came here on the, I think it's the 11th of November, they looked into the files of all the students and said, where is their training file of the exercises that they have done according to the original? It wasn't there. Why? because we had not taken ab initio students, we had taken experienced people. And this is where error number one took place. We put in an application to recognize prior experience. But because of the various delays that took place in signing this one off, it was not there at the time of the audit. This morning, I know why I wanted those documents. The phone, who took my phone away? I need it. Because I need to read something that arrived this morning to give you the context. And we had a meeting yesterday. Right. Dear Ian, kindly find attached letter of recommendation contents on paragraph 4.6. This comes out of the Technical Guidance Manual for Examiners and Oversight for Manned Aircraft. We are in the process of developing one for RPL. In the interim, use the existing since it's going to be similar. Once that has been done, we will organise an instructor and DFE conference. Thank you very much. That was this morning. Then, this is on the Technical Guidance Manual for DFEs. Dear Ian, kindly herewith the complete manual. My sincere apologies, we should have taken you through this when we appointed you. Again, from the CAA. The question is, in the documentation that says you were trained by an instructor and a letter to that effect. By the way, we asked yesterday where in the Part 101, where in CAT cards, where in TGMs, where is anything, it says that you need a letter of recommendation for RPAS from an instructor before you can do a DFE. We asked, where is it? And the answer is, it isn't. Nowhere does it exist. Where it is in the DFE manual for manned pilots. I'll come back to the original. I said RPL is a commercial license. And whether the people like it or not, the same processes, procedures, as though you're doing a CPL, is going to happen here. There's not going to be any difference. The costs that have been paid for training are going to, I would say, be 3 times the amount that has been paid, because the only way any flying school will be able to stay in business and comply with all the regulations as they're coming out is by an enormous increase in the number of people. Enormous increase in the number of people. The reality is that in order to get your licenses, you are going to need go with an instructor through every one of the exercises that are laid out in 10.3.4 to the satisfaction of an instructor. From the people that I've checked out, I want to say it should be a walk in the park, because your skills of flying is exceptional. However, there is no document, and by the way, this document was only produced on the 13th of October. So I don't know when you guys have checked out, but it was only on the 13th of October. Right? So, what's happening now is, like it or not like it, we are running a system that is parallel to a commercial pilot's license system. The only difference between what you have to do as a commercial pilot and what you have to do as a remote pilot is fly a different aircraft. The processes are identical, and I want to tell anybody now, if you're not serious about spending the time, the dedication, and the money, it's not worth getting an RPL. RPLs are purely for people who are totally serious about becoming commercial pilots. I tried to the best of my ability as a DFE to check out as many people as humanly possible, to the extent I ended up with heat stroke. Having got heat stroke, I'm now banned from being in the direct sun until February. I made it very clear I was the only DFE in South Africa. Can you imagine the situation? A, I could not do instruction, because how can you examine people you're instructing? I was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. My position of judge, jury, and executioner is gone. They have managed to appoint a new DFE who's in the West Rand, who is prepared, once he gets his letter of recommendation from the instructor, to carry out the checks. We will be following, and we are following, the same commercial pilot license system. A DFE works for the CAA, does not work for ProWings. You pay the DFE what the DFE charges you for doing your examinations. The instructors, and we have one instructor at the moment, is also not able to work for more than a certain number of hours in a certain period of time. I had an email from somebody who turned around and said, when I said that because of the heat wave, we have suspended the checkouts, he said, what the hell's that got to do with the heat wave? And my answer to that one is a hell of a lot. We have a responsibility as aviators to follow good health practices. We don't take aircraft off when the weather's wrong. Why would we put a human being standing out on a field when it's inhuman to do so? All of the people who have not been granted their licenses yet, all their documents are going to be returned to ProWings. From there, an arrangement will be made with each and every one of them to come and go through the training exercise. They will then get the letter of recommendation after completing successfully the exercises. Sorry? Yeah, we'll get there. No. And then they will go to the DFE to be checked out. That is the same as the CPL system and the commercial pilot system. Guys, get used to the idea. The aircraft doesn't matter. The documentation has to be the same. Whether we agree with it or we don't agree with it, what the CAA have said in very, very clear words, if you don't comply with the rules as we implement them, and I remember I'll add the words, as we implement them, then we won't issue you with a license. That simple. We did not take you, because of your experience and background, through all the exercises. What we have been told is we don't need to do as many hours as prescribed as long as you reach the time when you are competent at each exercise. So if you are competent within a very short time at that exercise, we can now go on to the next exercise. Each exercise has a label and an address. It has an identifier. Your logbook has to have in it the date, the time, how much time you spent on that exercise, and it needs to be signed by you as well as the instructor. So there is no question. I would suggest to all of you, buy logbooks exactly the same way as man-flying logbooks. Because what's happening is, we are moving more and more and more and more to the man side. When I asked the question last night, where did this whole letter come from? I was told it's in part 61. Captain Richards told me this morning where the whole letter of recommendation came from in the first place to the commercial pilot's license. And I can tell you how it all came about. Originally, the CAA did the inspections. Their inspectors inspected everybody for their competency. And then they ran out of inspectors. When Captain Richards first came to South Africa to get his license checked out, he was unable to work for a period of 6 months while he had to wait for an inspector to actually sign him out. There is no such thing as quick. So the guys who are under the impression of quick, get rid of it. I will quote for you from an email that was sent from the CAA to me here. This is from part 141 training. We currently have in the region of 220 active 141 operators in this country. With only 6 inspectors, this means each inspector has to look after 37 plus operators, which each require 2 inspections a year. You can work the maths out. They also have to tend to all applications that come from the CAA. TPM amendments. if you want to look at TPM amendments, our Technical Procedures Manual amendment, right? We have amendment that has been waiting now for close on 6 months in a man's thing to be completed and returned. So we can't do anything until it is stamped signed. Alright? Would somebody like to just get off the wall an op spec for me? I think it's really necessary for the people to understand what aviation training is about and why it is the way it is. What you're allowed to do is on this document. Until you receive this document, you are not allowed to do a thing outside this document. You can have all the emails in the world, you can have all the verbal agreements in the world, you can have everything you like in the world, but unless it is stamped and it's on here, it does not exist. And the question is why? I asked a question while I was doing a checkout. What is my responsibility as a designated flight examiner if one of you that I've signed off does something ridiculous? What's my responsibility? And you know what I was told? 0. The CAA take total responsibility for the safety of the skylines and the airspace of South Africa. And at the meeting yesterday, the legal person who was represented at that senior managers meeting made it very clear that if there is an incident involving RPAS in South Africa, we have got the whole world looking at us. We are the first. And all the people who have been complaining it's taking so long, let me try and help you. In order to do any flying in most countries throughout the world, you need a special permit. It's called an exemption. An exemption takes between 90 and 180 days to be issued. We have been in operation for 3 months and 5 days. Every single time you want to fly, you have to make a separate application for exemption, for which you will wait 90 days to 180 days to get permission. And people have been jumping up and down, and it's because we're not used to waiting. In the RPL community, it is the fast food of flying. You go in to a shop, you buy an aircraft, you charge it, you put it down, you add the camera, you put the software on your cell phone or on your iPad, and you fly, and away you go. And the whole thing can be done within how long? Hours. Within a couple of hours. You can go to Gary, and within a couple of hours, you can be up and flying. Fast food. We have an aircraft where we've had the engine being redone. It had to be inspected, it had to be redone, the engine to be done. It's sitting over at Vonderburg. We needed the airworthiness done. The airworthiness, first of all, came out as a personal ownership instead of a business ownership. When was that aircraft test checked?
About 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, the aircraft was checked out to be fine. We will be lucky if we can pick up the documentation next week to be able to use that aircraft for flying. Because everything goes through its safety checks. So what I'm saying to the commercial remote pilot licenses, guys, the commercial remote pilot, and I'm going to say commercial again, get used to the idea this is not fast food. Admittedly, I didn't know the restaurant was going to take that long. But I will tell you that if I have to implement, and I do, the only difference is the aircraft. Everything will be according to the commercial pilot system. The only difference will be the aircraft. If we have to implement this, there's two things you better get used to. One is, it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer than you anticipated to get your licenses. Secondly, the training is going to take you a hell of a lot longer than you expected it to take. And thirdly, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money than you anticipated it taking you right in the beginning. We have been moving over the last few months all the time. The targets have been moving. The CIA explained yesterday, South Africa is the test case for the world. We've got to get it right in South Africa. We've got to get it right here. We've got to be able to complete the documentation. We've got to be able to complete everything correctly here and prove that it is possible for people to get commercial remote pilot licenses. We have to be devoid of incidents. Our documentation at the CAA, when the ICAO inspectors, the International Civil Aviation Authority inspectors go there, and they check all your files, and they check all the documents, which they will do. We need to prove that not only have we followed the letter of the law, the spirit of the law, but we've done everything that's humanly possible to be compliant. We are taking on additional staff here to do nothing else except be compliance officers, to be able to check, double check and recheck to make sure there's no findings here. RPL training is new. Like it or not, it is the same as manned training. The only difference is the aircraft. And the sooner as everybody gets that in their mind, the better. I've got various questions that have been put forward that people want to ask and they want me to answer. Based on what I've just said, please, the floor is open. Yes.
Hi, Rob. It's Jason, and of course, ProWings a while ago. I only actually, you answered quite a few of the questions that we I only really have two little questions at this stage. Sorry, three. My documentation was submitted a couple of weeks ago already. The call at the CIA went through documentation and said there was a new application form that needed to be completed, and item 61 and what have you. Now, she went personally, was the woman in charge, went through all that documentation, and Malcolm and said, now the documentation is in order. Why not just say 3 weeks ago, generally, that the documentation actually wasn't in there? You know, my first question. And my
Let's
second...
take a question at a time,
Sorry.
right?
Just a matter of interest, you know, they check all our documentation. Why 11 hours only notified today? The documentation wasn't until after that meeting, 3-4 weeks ago.
We've been waiting now for a number of weeks for a decision to be made as to the way forward. It hasn't been a week or 2 weeks, it's been a number of weeks. We've been, ever since the audit, we have been looking at coming to a resolution saying, okay, if that's what your finding is, we can explain why. The finding is based on experienced pilot. They're saying, right, we're not accepting that. We want to see the exercises being done. Right? At that stage, I don't believe that the senior management of CAA had made a decision on how to go forward. The decision on how to go forward was made yesterday. And I had a premonition that the decision would be made yesterday, and that's why last week I asked the people to come to this meeting today, because what I wanted to do was to share with the people the decision that was made. And I want to repeat, CAA stated categorically yesterday that they are responsible if an incident takes place in South Africa. And if you are responsible, you have rights. The person who accepts the responsibility also must have the respect of that responsibility. Is it inconvenient? Yes. Is it a pain in the butt? Yes. Do we like it? No. Are we accepting it? Yes. We will not be doing any of these checkouts until such time as we have the new one of these that takes account specifically of the amendment for experienced RC pilots, where we can, and we legally can, reduce the number of hours that you need to do. We will come to a time basis where we'll say, up to that amount of time, ProWings will absorb the costs. After that, then you guys need to absorb it yourselves.
Will you also forward us the details for that DFE in which grants?
The DFE will not be interested in you until such time as you've been issued with a letter of recommendation. I won't be doing any checkouts until February. I'm not allowed.
I mean, I just want to know, what do I need to do from here?
We are closing on the 18th of December and opening up on the 4th of January.
Okay, so after the 4th
Right.
of January, yeah.
Fortunately, we now have an opportunity of swapping. I will be here as an instructor at the school, and